What's your best example of sweet, sweet karma? One morning I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts on my way to work for some coffee. It had already been a not-so-great morning, so I wasn't in the best mood. The guy a couple of people ahead of me got a large iced coffee, which is 32 ounces at Dunkin' Donuts, and he ended up being parked next to me in the parking lot. So I'm getting in my car and happen to glance over and notice that he's in his car, but his enormous coffee is on the roof of his car. So I waved at him and pointed to his roof. He looked at me, and for whatever reason, his reaction was to flip me off. I don't know if he thought I was making some kind of rude gesture, or if I was just a weirdo, or what. But I got to watch him pull out of his parking space. His coffee stayed put while he backed out, but as soon as he braked to shift gears, that thing just dumped all down his front windshield. It was honestly one of the most gratifying moments of my life. Happened to me with a bucket of KFC. I thought the girl that was gesturing at me was just saying hi. Next thing I know, chicken was raining down my windshield. I picked up some of it. If it didn't hit the concrete, it's still good to eat, right? Was driving home slowly during the aftermath of a major ice storm. Dallas and Fort Worth don't have salt trucks or plows, so there was a thick layer of ice on all the highways, which are mostly elevated so they take ages to thaw if the temperature stays low. A guy in a sports car blows past me and a bunch of other people just trying to stay on the road. He's changing lanes really quick and speeding up and generally just being a massive jerk on a dangerous road. Couple of miles later, the guy's car is spun out, still upright, and stuck in an icy ditch. He was fine, standing next to the also fine car, spitting mad. So I'm glad he wasn't hurt, but man, did he deserve to end up in a ditch for driving like that. Seriously, we get that you might know how to drive on ice in the Arctic, but Texas doesn't have the infrastructure you're used to. The roads aren't built for ice. There are no plows. We aren't rusting our cars with salt over the 2 days every 4 years that ice is over. It just ain't the same. The kids in my neighborhood, including me, liked to toss snowballs at passing cars. One day a guy in a purple pickup truck drove by and we lit him up with 4 or 5 of the little snowballs. About 2 minutes later, the same truck comes back up the road, revving the engine loud. He zooms by and his arm comes out of the window holding a snowball about the size of a soccer ball. Somehow he nailed the neighbor kid right in the chest with that snowball, and the kid crumbled to the snow from the impact. We heard him laughing his butt off as he drove away. I never saw the purple truck again. Don't throw snowballs at cars, it's more dangerous than it seems. For the drivers. I still feel like a tool when I remember, even though I was only 11 or so. This is so goddamn funny and perfect karma. I bet that guy was smiling for the rest of the day. I know I would have been. Just try not to think about the possibility that you hurt anyone. A few years ago, I was out at a pub with some friends for my birthday. A few of them are sitting outside and my best friend coughed. This apparently infuriated a girl sitting nearby, and she had her boyfriend just start beating the crap out of my best friend. My best friend was female, by the way, and her boyfriend. My best friend is a little scrapper, so she can hold her own in a fight if she needs to, but the guy is the one throwing the majority of the punches. Police obviously got called, and the guy legs it before they arrive. The police took a few statements from my friends and start trying to find the guy in order to arrest him. But even after a few weeks, they still hadn't found him. Best friend gets a call from the police station soon after to say that they'd arrested the guy who'd beaten up her and her boyfriend. Turns out they hadn't been able to find him because while he was running away from the pub that night, he'd tried to jump a high fence, fallen, and hit his head, resulting in a 6-week coma. Best part is that after being in a hospital for 6 weeks, he got arrested. Even better, head trauma probably ensured he remembered very little about the night. The guy probably had no idea why he was being arrested. I don't know, man. If you're the kind of guy to start throwing punches at other people on command, you probably have a pretty good idea of why you're being arrested. Me? Sir, your brake pads are worn down and your rim is worn. There's also a crack in your head tube. The customer? I just need the puncture fixed. Okay, sure, it's not safe to ride though, you understand? It's been fine for years. I proceed to fix the puncture, the customer rides away and not even 5 meters from the door the rim collapses under the pressure. And he goes over the handlebars. It's been fine for years though, right? People are stupid. Some of the crap I see is crazy. We have this one customer who's an engineer, he actually is, and he runs his bike to death, then refuses to spend money until something fails. Latest thing was the handlebars. Engineers can be especially dumb. I have classmates who are incredibly gifted when it comes to academic work but have zero life skills or common sense. A guy I know almost burned his room down when he set fire to his curtains using a hot plate because he didn't know he was supposed to keep an eye on the food he was cooking. This kid I would go to school with. Met him my freshman year and could tell right away he was a huge idiot. He would constantly brag about all the substances he did, and he would call girls fat and stupid C-words right to their faces. He even hocked a loogie on one of my good friends who tried to get into his fraternity's party. This kid is also 6'3" and 220, so unless you're that big, there's nothing you can really do. Well, just last week he called some girl fat, and when she got up in his face, he knocked her out and literally body slammed her friend coming to her aid. The girls went to the police and told them everything. When they went to his house to arrest them, there was a glass pipe and clear view. So through reasonable cause, they searched his room. They found a ton of Xanax, white snow, and green herb, so not only is he going to jail for attacking the girl, but also felony substance charges with intent to sell. Lesson to be learned, karma is a B word. I used to rent my sister's house. She moved out with her boyfriend, now husband, and my brother and I rented the house from her. We were in our early 20s and boys, and the place was never going to be immaculate, but we certainly didn't trash it. My sister has somewhat unreasonable cleanliness standards, however. She inspects the place one day while we're at work and flips out, kicks us out 2 days before Christmas. The next tenants absolutely destroyed her house, tore up floorboards and spray painted the walls. Destroyed it. We were messy, but would never have done that. There was no apology. Our relationship was very rocky for years afterwards, hardly ever speaking to one another. I think in a way she blamed us for the damage, like a "if you didn't make me evict you, this never would have happened" sort of way. But we had experiences to draw from our pasts, where not talking to family has resulted in unfinished business when a family member dies, and she's always been more like a mum to me as there's quite a large age gap between us. We sort of just started hanging out again, mainly for my nephew, as I was his main male role model for years, and eventually we became friends again. Though I'm a little salty with her at the moment because we were supposed to see the new It movie together and she's gone and seen it without me, I'll get over it. And no, we don't talk about it. It's not funny yet. The moon landing conspiracy theorist who followed Buzz Aldrin until Buzz punched him right in the face. Why is it always so gosh darn satisfying when you see the girlfriend be like, "Just ignore him, he's stupid, just ignore him," and then they go too far and she just kind of moves to the side, giving the signal to punch him? One of my former bosses, he was a hotel manager for a corporate company, worked off salary and never had to clock in. The guy was as dumb as rocks. If you were new and had a question, he'd literally only say, "Look at the manuals." Never anything else. He was present maybe 2 hours of his entire week. He never came in, somehow never got caught after 10 years of working there. Well, the guy got canned 3 days after I quit. It all caught up with him eventually. I've heard 3 years later and he's still struggling to find a job. When you've held something down for 10 years and get fired, it doesn't look good. Yep, some of my best managers have had the same statement in new jobs: there are no stupid questions. And while that isn't necessarily true, it's a great thing for nervous new hires to hear if you can back it up. A dude on a bike somehow caught a ball kicked at him and he ran away with it. I came back to a restaurant one day a week I used to be head chef at after I left the industry. They were short-staffed and willing to pay me an absurd hourly rate. First day back, the new head chef, who didn't know I'd worked there before, literally screamed at me and told me, "You, bossy C-words like you are why I treat women like crap." The restaurant owner happened to be dining at the bar when this happened, and the guy in question was promptly fired. I hope he's miserable. Haha. Vile sexism aside, how dumb do you have to be to do that? It was later revealed to me that he has a very severe alcohol dependence and problem. I think that accounts for the volume, at least. Back when I was washing dishes at age 16, this one waiter would just throw plates and silverware into the bus tub I used for soaking, particularly caked on or messy food. The crap would splash all over me every time he threw it in there. Eventually, I just shot him with the industrial dishwashing hose, and he got sent home because he couldn't wait tables soaking wet. It is well known in every restaurant I've ever worked in, 10 years in the industry, that if you splash the dishwashers while putting crap in the tubs, you could expect a spraying the next time they saw you. Don't mess with the kitchen. Dish pit counts as the kitchen. Not me, but a friend of mine did this. During the fall, his neighborhood would put bags of leaves out on the curb for a pickup. These punk kids would always drive over the bags, making a big mess in the street. So one day, he takes a stack of cinder blocks and hides them in the bags. He said he could fit 8 blocks in each bag, and then fill up the rest of the bag with leaves. The kids drive by, aim for the bags, boom, big damage to their cars. He said that they stopped their silly behavior after that. Man, I had a substance dealer live across the street from me, and his customers were some of the biggest jerks I've ever seen. They hit my mailbox, garbage cans, completely drove through my ditch. The city maintained cutting the ditches, so of course the grass there was always waist high. I lined my ditch with huge, as in 200 pounds each, slabs of stone. First day literally removed one guy's bumper and incapacitated a different car. Easily damaged 15 cars a week. My first-year college roommate cheated on each of the 3 girlfriends he had that year. I'd bet my house that he continued to do this all through college and beyond after I stopped living with him. Just last week, I found out from a mutual acquaintance that he'd discovered his fiancée had been cheating on him about a month before their wedding. I mean, you had that coming, you idiot. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. I tried to bully a kid by hitting his bike with mine, and I went right over my handlebars. I respect that you'd come into this thread and be like, I was the jerk. My friend, I'll call him Zeke for convenience, and I will go to this old dock from time to time just to hang out and talk because the area was beautiful, and there's an old building where an event site used to be. So we just dig through the massive lost and found or spray paint some hip cool art, yo. Memes mostly. Well, one time Zeke brought a friend who was on Snapchat or something on Zeke's phone the whole time yelling about some stupid breakup, like screaming. He got aggressive because we told him to chill. Well, Zeke wanted his phone back eventually, but the friend refused to give it, because that friend was a prick. The friend proceeded to drop then catch his phone over the 30 feet deep water. I grabbed the phone and calmly said that was stupid. The friend whipped out his own phone, but he preferred Zeke's, I'm still not sure, and said, "Watch this." He dropped the phone and missed the catch, and it sunk into the pure brown water, descending quicker than the kid could open his mouth to scream. My friend was dating a guy and she told me he had a 500 horsepower Mustang. I went for a ride with him. He later totaled that one, doing 40 miles per hour in the rain with traction control off, with drag radials, and he got a newer one with 700 horsepower. I turned down a ride in it and talked my buddy out of it. The guy had skills but nothing resembling judgment. It passed traffic at 140 miles per hour with 3 passengers. As of Friday, that's now his 700 horsepower coffin. Well, that got darker than I was expecting on this thread. I definitely had friends growing up that I wouldn't get in the car with in this day and age. Not sure if this happens to any of them, but I hope not. I came from a pretty large school that was very competitive about academics. I finished 51 out of 650, and I was very happy with that. The valedictorian, who I barely knew, said to me the week of the graduation that she didn't know how she didn't have more competition. High school is so easy. Then she said, like, take you for example. You're pretty smart, but you set yourself back in life by not trying to be valedictorian. Like, you couldn't get into an Ivy League with your rank, and my valedictorian title gets me in wherever. On top of that, my best friend was getting paid to write essays for people, and I knew Miss Pompa's valedictorian brought many from her. I mostly forgot about this girl and moved on with my life. I graduated college, moved back to our hometown, and got a good-paying job. The first weekend back, I ran into her. She works as a cashier at Target. You bet I went through her line to say hi. I sincerely wish her all the success in the world now, but it also was really good to see reality found her. Don't you love it when a big fish in a small pond gets introduced to the ocean and realizes how small they actually are? You're not hot crap if you can't swim against the ocean currents. How good did this feel? Hey, insert valedictorian name. How are you? Yeah, I just moved back to town and I got this great job at Amazing Company. How about you? Are you working here to pay for uni? No? This is your full-time job? Oh, okay, that's cool. Valedictorian, my butt. In the mid-2000s, my sister passed away from cancer. The entire school knew about it because she had been able to attend the school for weeks. She had to stop shortly after, but everyone knew we were siblings. Anyway, I had this bully that tormented me fairly often, mostly stupid kid stuff. The day after, he told me in the lunch line, "I'm glad your sister died." That was the first and only time I punched someone first. I broke his nose and got a 10-day vacation courtesy of Zero Tolerance. When my friends and I dumped bottles of glue into this other kid's snow boots in 6th grade because earlier that day he nailed me in the face with an ice ball and laughed at me while my face bled. His boots were completely ruined, and he couldn't go outside for a while. I don't remember the teachers doing anything about it because we didn't have security cameras at the time, and the kid was a little crapbag, so they probably didn't care. Today at lunch, I kept telling my preschool student to stop looking under the table because he was going to hit his head. Halfway through my 3rd repetition, he banged his head on the table. He stopped. I and my parents were on the highway and we were at a part that didn't have passing lanes. I think it might have been a national park or something, and this guy kept on tailgating us. He almost nudged our car as well, and since he couldn't pass us, we were stuck like that until we passed the park. The guy seriously almost caused us to crash our fricking car, with how ridiculously dangerous he was driving. He passed us eventually, and about 5 minutes later, we saw him pulled over by a cop. There's a video of some D-bag in a truck annoying a lady on a highway. She's filming him, and he very aggressively pulls up beside her and flips her off before purposefully cutting her off. But when he slams on the gas to get out in front of her, he loses control of his truck and immediately wrecks it while the lady continues to film. God, that felt good. One of my co-workers' kids was being super crappy to the animals. We train horses and take people for trail rides, as well as have a crapload of farm animals. He was chasing the older horses and the chickens with a stick, and they were all just kind of putting up with it. Now my horse and the milk cow were chilling together in the corner, and he tried to hit the cow with a stick. And oh boy, neither of them were having any of that. My horse swung his head at the little piece of crap and showed him his teeth. He would never actually bite or touch him, but he knows how to look scary as all get out when he wants. And the cow head-butted the kid into the dirt while the horse had him distracted. Guess what? He has a lot more respect for animals now, and he stopped trying to hit them with sticks. For those of you wondering why we didn't make him stop, we figured he'd hear it better from a 1,000-pound animal. Non-commissioned officer in the Royal Navy. A few years back, had a lazy officer, a pilot, doing my report for the year. He never filed it and my promotion went back at least a year because of that. I later heard he got promoted to lieutenant commander. Turns out he was faking his medical documents so he could keep flying as he was no longer medically fit. Discharged from the Navy, no pension, and a criminal record. If he was honest, he would have got a medical discharge and a medical pension. I was promoted in the end, but it took longer than it should have. Two of my friends got involved in a love triangle. One did the deed with the other's wife, then told him about it because that's what a real friend would do, and then after a few random incidents, this butthole decides he wants the wife as his new girl. He calls the other friend and tells him he's coming to kill him and take his wife. Highly drunk, by the way, to which he was told, "If you come here, I'm going to crush your skull with a bat." He proceeded to walk for hours to get there to do what, do you ask? To get the crap beat out of him with a bat. Didn't die, but was severely beaten, and it took surgeries to fix things, including a shoulder replacement and completely removing about 6 inches on his humerus. Investigators said they estimate he was hit between 35 and 50 times. There's a strange scale of trying to do the right thing, failing to continue to do the right thing, effing around and finding out here. What an interesting story of self-discovery it was. This was years back in high school, but I remember this football jock who was your typical butthead to everyone just because he was stronger, cooler, and all that jazz. He also did substances which he thought made him cool. Him and I didn't get along well, even though we were on the same team, because he loved bullying people and I'd tell him to F off. Anyways, it was his dream to join the army and become a ranger out of high school. On grad night, our school went to Disneyland, and he never showed up for graduation. I found out later that he tried sneaking substances into Disneyland on grad night, and since he had turned 18 recently, they booked him as an adult. Can't exactly become a ranger with a record of dealing hard substances to minors. Felt like that was payback for all the bullying and nonsense he pulled for years. The company I worked for got bought out, and one of our executives basically sold many of us out with demotions, firings, etc. It was bad enough that it was happening. But this guy just wouldn't be honest and candid with us during the process. At some point, people got wise to the situation and there were mass resignations. The executive that had sold us all out got fired one day due to his inability to retain the team and left the building with tears in his eyes. I was at the beach and this lady was sunbathing in front of me with one of those aluminium tanning sheets. She had her leftover food in a styrofoam container wrapped in a plastic bag and a couple of seagulls were beginning to grab at it. About 6 or 7 were sort of pecking at it, and I got up to shoo them away. More had congregated and I tapped her shoulder to let her know what was up. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and literally waved her hand, dismissing me, and laid back down. The 6 or 7 seagulls had doubled and I once again got up, shooed them away, and alerted her to the upcoming disaster. She once again rolled her eyes and was clearly not to be bothered by a concerned beachgoer. At this point I was mildly hallucinating at the edible I'd taken earlier, and said, "Frick it," and watched about 50 seagulls slaughter her leftovers. She got up in a frenzy, birds and food everywhere. Never have I laughed and pointed so hard at a person in my life. It was uncontrollable. Tears were streaming down my face as she got up, terrified and shocked at what had just happened. It was so satisfying. I don't think I've laughed harder at anyone else's expense since. Just thinking about it now brings back wonderful feelings. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.